especially if you've got kids, it's really, really tough. And it's part of the reason why we've seen a rising tide of in-work poverty in our country in recent years. And some of the reasons for that are because if you're in a low-paid job, you're quite likely to be doing some of those really important, essential roles that we were all standing on our doorsteps clapping people for last year. And for those roles, often people talk about how it's a real struggle to get the flexibility that they need to fit their daily life around their working commitments. They talk about it's a struggle to find the security and the stability that they need because they don't know from one week to the next what shifts they're going to be working. They don't know how many hours they're going to get. They don't know whether shifts might be cancelled at the last minute, and that makes it impossible to plan family life and to plan your budget. And that is one of the reasons why we've seen a rising tide of in-work poverty and more people in work relying on things like universal credit to help them top up their pay.
You had our conversation with the minister. There are lots of factors at play here, incentivising employment, and however much people might want to make the minimum wage higher. There are questions then about what effect that has on employment. What do you think would be better than it is now?
Well, I think there are a couple of things that the government needs to do. The first is they've talked about bringing forward an employment bill. They need to get on with that, and they need to use that to make work more secure for people and to make sure that they can find that stability and that security. The second thing that they need to do, however, is to not cut universal credit.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. It's not a cut. It's a reversal of the uplift.
Well, I think you were right in your question, Eddie, when you said that actually if you're someone who's on universal credit, tell that to them when their income suddenly goes down by £1,000 a year overnight. It's going to be the biggest cut to benefits overnight since the Second World War. It's huge.
But the economy is improving, isn't it?
The economy is improving, but the point about universal credit, the increase to universal credit, if we go back to March 2020, when that increase was brought in, the reason that Rishi Sunak gave for why he was going to increase universal credit was in order to strengthen our safety net. That was an admission that our safety net has not been giving people the support and the security that it's there to provide. Over the last year, we've all faced a huge crisis together. But actually, in people's day-to-day lives, they face crises all the time. Relationships break down, people get sick, people lose their jobs. And that is what social security is there for. It is to help all of us through those times, and it should be something that we can rely on. The increase of £20 a week was an admission that through the years of cuts and freezes over the last decade, our safety net has not been performing the role that it should. So that's why it was increased. It was the right thing to do then, and the right thing to do now is not to cut it and increase the insecurity that people face, but to keep it because it has been a lifeline for so many people.
Good to see you, thank you. That's Katie Schmucker, Deputy Director of Policy and Partnerships for the Joseph Rowntree Foundation. And now over to you, if you are on minimum wage and know what it's like, and we had Katie Schmucker talk about some of the related issues of minimum wage, not just about the actual level of payment, then please get in touch. 0345 6060 973. Not just because it's the news of the day, but also because you're not often heard on this, and it would be good to hear you. We heard in the last hour from the Financial Times, didn't we, about the advisory board, the slightly mysterious advisory board, which it seems if you have £250,000 you can have the ear of the Prime Minister. Well, for the cost of a phone call, you can have the ear of the nation. Speak about your experience on minimum wage. 0345 6060 973. Here's Tony. Hi Tony, what do you want to tell me?
Oh, good evening, Eddie. First time caller.
Very welcome.
Yes, I'm a carer for my partner who is disabled. She's bedridden, and the government only pay me £67 a week.
And how are you getting on with that?
Not very easy at all. I mean, I can claim income support as well, which I do, but even then, I mean, my income is still, it works out as about £100 a week.
What do you need?
Sorry?
What do you need? What would make your life better?
Well, some more money. I mean, UBI, I'm a great fan of the UBI plan.
Tell me about that.
the universal basic income.
Right.
This has got support several MPs, I believe. Pay everybody a universal basic income, which I believe would be about £1,500 a month.
Tony, thank you. I want to get as many voices on here as I possibly can. Thank you, Tony. Here's Pat in Bridgend. Hello, Pat. Tell me about you.
Oh, hi, Eddie. I wasn't going to ring in, but that Paul Scully just made me so cross that I had to. I'm on minimum wage. I'm a care worker, so I earn a grand total of £8.91 an hour. I work an average of 204 hours a week, a month, which is not a lot in the care sector, and I earn under £1,500 take-home pay. I work in the third sector, and I'm actually a branch secretary as well for a union, and we cover the third sector, so I deal with care workers from all over Wales, the majority of which receive minimum wage. A lot of them don't get top-up benefits because they work so many hours. My daughter has just finished a 71-hour week, and that's not unusual. I'm just so cross because the whole thing, he's saying it's a bad employer that pays minimum wage and they should all do better. Well, I'm actually paid by the government if you go through the steps, because social care is so badly funded. The money goes to the local authorities. The local authorities commission the employers, such as the people I work for, and they go for the lowest bid. So companies can't afford to pay more than the minimum wage because they're only getting the bare minimum from the local authorities.
And Pat, I don't want to pry into your finances more than I already have, in talking about what your earnings are, but what sort of...
I'm quite happy to say how skint I am.
Well, how skint are you? Tell me.
Well, my car wouldn't work last week. I have to have a car as part of my job, and I sat here, and I'll be honest, in tears, because when you live on minimum wage, you survive, but you have no backup plan. So there's no savings, there's no emergency fund. So luckily, I've got somebody who got me a battery, and I actually fitted it myself, because I could not have afforded a repair, which then would have meant I couldn't have gone to work. So when the bills come in, I can cover my bills. If something comes in that's a bit extra, something else has to go.
And what about life's little luxuries? What about a holiday? What about nights out? Whatever tickles your fancy?
Holidays aren't possible. It is not. There's no way I could afford it, even if we didn't have COVID. I do have the odd night out. I try to go out twice a month if I can, which is basically to the local pub. Luckily, I'm not a very heavy drinker, so 20 quid would get all the beer that I need.
You're a cheap date.
I'm a very cheap date. I know my limits on alcohol these days, and I drink pints, so, there's nothing fancy about me in any way. But I still have to get there, and I don't drink in my town, because it's quite a homophobic town, and I'm a gay woman. I go to the nearest city where there's a scene, which is a whole new story, but it means I have to get there and get back. So, there's train fares take into consideration. And if I do go out and I come back, I quite often haven't got the money for a taxi, and it's a 3-mile walk from the station, up a black path on my own in the middle of the night to get home. But obviously going out has a lot of planning because I don't have that extra bit of cash, just in case.
Pat, really good to hear from you. Thank you. Here is Ryan now in Windsor. Ryan, tell me about you.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I would like to add a small point about the minimum pay. I understand that there is no clear guideline by government for extra hour or overtime. It depends on company to company. I'm working with a small to medium-sized travel company, and when anybody is working as an overtime, the person has to work at least hour and a half, and for that hour and a half, the person is getting £12 only, which is actually less than the minimum wage. And on top of that, actually this is less than their own salary. So the employee puts extra effort for the the benefit of company, but in return, the person is getting less than the normal salary he or she gets it.
And how are you getting on? But Pat was telling me about her life and how she gets through. What about you?
Well, under the current circumstances, the travel industry is in chaos. Everybody is up to their knees and just they want to survive for 2021 with the hope that next year something will open up.
Brian, thank you for calling in. At that point about overtime, several listeners echoing that on text. Paul in Brentford. Minimum wage workers saved us last year. I don't need to list them, says Paul. On top of that, any overtime is only a single time. I worked in a shipyard 35 years ago. We got time and a half. I work in a supermarket now, and I see how people are trying to make ends meet. Another text. I used to be a branch manager for one of the companies named and shamed today. I consistently worked in excess of 70 hours a week. Overtime, when you're a manager, isn't paid, as you pay is based on commission from profits, so anything over 50 hours contracted is free. If your branch didn't make money, you were on your way to less than minimum wage for the hours worked. For this company to say we're doing anything by accident is hilarious. If they could save a penny at the employee's expense, they would, did, and can. They've just been caught this time. Tell me about your experience on the minimum wage. 0345 6060 973. More of that, plus the COVID report after the headlines. 6:32. Here's Thomas Watts.
Boris Johnson's defended the government's approach to international travel, following criticism from airlines and tour operators. Industry groups have warned the UK's updated isolation and quarantine requirements are still lagging behind other nations. 7 men have been jailed for murdering a law student caught up in a drive-by shooting in Blackburn. 19-year-old Aya Hashim was killed by a stray bullet, fired as part of a feud between the owners of rival tyre shops. Team GB are on 51 medals at the Tokyo Olympics, equaling their total from Beijing in 2008. Matt Walls delivered Britain's first goal in the velodrome. Holly Bradshaw and Liam Heath won bronze in the pole vault and kayaking, respectively. The weather rather cloudy and unsettled, with showery rain across the UK this evening. Heavy downpours in parts of eastern Scotland, a low of 14 degrees.
LBC, Nick Ferrari at breakfast with Tom Swarbrick.
Grant Shapps, the Secretary of State for Transport, Conservative MP for Welwyn Hatfield. Spain is not on an amber watch list, but you're worried about people coming back taking a lateral flow test.
Almost everybody already takes a PCR test. The reason that we've just made special mention of Spain is to keep abreast of the latest data on this particular variant.
If it's important, why not make it mandatory?
So we know you can never do it entirely, and so it's always a question of finding the right balance with these things.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast with Tom Swarbrick. Back tomorrow morning from 7. Listen on your radio and on Global Player. LBC.
Let's get our COVID-19 vaccinations sorted. If you're 18 and over, you can book right now. The vaccine is the best way to protect yourself and others. And remember, you need your second dose after 8 weeks. Go to nhs.uk/COVID vaccination to book, or visit your local walk-in centre. The sooner, the safer. Every vaccination gives us hope.
Picture the scene. Warm summer sun, the smell of sea air, and ice cream. Ice cream with sprinkles. It feels so good. Know what else feels so good? Knowing that Pension B combined your old pensions into one simple online plan, managed by one of the world's largest money managers, for peace of mind. Be pension confident. Download the app or visit pensionb.com today.
Authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Capital at risk.
So you want a new car, but only with the right deal, of course. Well, here's this year's must-have offers now at Jimca Toyota's 71 plate event. For a limited time, enjoy up to 10% off the list price on selected new Toyotas. And right on the money, there's 0% finance on some very special models. The clock is ticking. Visit your nearest Jimca Toyota centre today, with branches in Bromley, Croydon and Sidcup, Edgware Road and Enfield, and Bracknell and Reading. Terms and conditions apply.
opportunity to hear what living on the minimum wage is like? Let me know. Here's Ali in Brent. Hi, Ali.
Hi, Messiah. How are you, sir?
I'm very well. Tell me about you.
First, check my apologies. My English is not 100% good.
I'm listening.
Okay. I'm living on the minimum wages, which is I'm working 16 hours a week in the car showroom, and I receive the universal credit at the same time. But the point is, and the problem, which is not just me, which is I believe a lot of people, they're struggling with it. I'm going to give you the numbers, which is very true number. I'm taking 615 a month from my work, and I receive 2,075 pounds a month from universal credit. My rent is 1,625 a month. My bill a month, which is nearly 400 pounds between electricity, water, gas, Sky, mobile, telephone, and all of it. So I'm living with nearly 500 or 400 a month. But the problem is that whatever we take, we appreciate it with the universal credit they give. But still it's not enough. Especially when they call and they say, oh, you are in debit before 400 pounds, we're going to take 75 pounds a month. When I'm trying to check what this for and what's coming from, I'm not going to be late with my payment, with my council tax, with this, with that, and all of this. Say, no, this is a debit, you have to pay it back. So they start checking it because they control the payment. The other thing, the Brent Council, every single month, if I'm lying, every 2 months, let we say, they never took the same amount every month. I'm paying 121 a month for a council tax. And whenever I call them, yeah, this is what you have to pay. This is what you have to take. And when you ask it for more information, like it's something like work, either accepted that, either we stop or we take it. So we don't know what's going on.
Ali, thank you. I want to get Rob on next. Hi, Rob. Welcome. Tell me about you.
Hi there. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Love the show.
You're very welcome.
I'm just talking about minimum wage jobs. It's mainly that I'm sitting here and knowing how minimum wage works. You literally just have to forego any comforts that you want in life in order just to survive, and things that you have to consider as comforts now change drastically. So just trying to afford fresh food, fresh fruit and vegetables, stuff like avocados that everyone now loves, just has to sort of go out the window, and you have to live a life that's not really healthy, especially in the climate we're in.
Well, tell me about the work you do, first of all.
Hospitality, work in a cafe, and it's 0-hour contract, so it's pretty much you just have to try and strive and grab as many hours as you can. So not guaranteed the hours, monthly wage fluctuates, and you just have to make do.
What do you do when you're in a month where you're not getting enough work?
So pretty much it's a case of you have to take some agency work, so you sign up to something like any of the agencies that are kicking around your local area, and then you try and find any swap hours that some of these bars or cafes that are opening up are giving away. But as most are struggling to even pay their own workers, it means that jobs are pretty much in the few.
So you're sometimes doing 2 jobs?
Yes.
And always on minimum wage?
Yes, and that's, if you're lucky, you can actually afford to live that month. If not, you just have to cut down on something you can cut down, and obviously you can't cut down on stuff like rent or bills, so it just comes down to food, and then you have to hope you don't have any dependents under you. And luckily enough, I'm young and alone, so can forgo things like that.
What's this doing to your mental health?
Wonders, to be honest, as you can imagine. It's a case of things. I go to the gym to try and quell anything that sort of comes up, but there are times where you just have to let go of that for 6 months, and then all the stress just sort of builds up, and you just have to bite your lip, really. Nothing else to it.
That's tough.
It really is, and then you've got universal credit, but obviously if you're working, you don't get much money through how many hours you paid, and then whatever you are paid at the end of that rarely does actually cover much apart from just bills.
We heard from the Minister earlier talking about how the increase in universal credit was for a specific purpose during COVID, and now we're emerging from that. The economy is picking up, and I guess he was talking about people in your position who might be able to get better jobs with more money.
I think it's hilarious because obviously jobs are really hard to come by, and even if you get an interview, you're competing with maybe 300-400 other people, so any little mistake is an easy way to just get dropped. And then it's a case of they're talking about not cutting, just taking away the extra that they had done, but it's only that little bit extra is what's made things a little bit more bearable. So trying to cut everything back to what it was before is just going to make things harder to what people got used to.
Rob, I'm really glad you called in. Thank you for listening, and thank you for calling. I appreciate it. Here's Kate. My daughter worked as a home care assistant during her gap year. She was totally exploited, and the minimum wage then wasn't paid for the time spent travelling between clients. Expected to work both 6 o'clock in the morning and 11:30 at night on the same day, numerous days a week. Management and directors of these companies need to take some accountability. Another text. The problem is wages are not kept pace with accommodation and essential items, and companies are beholden to shareholders or venture capital firms. The rich get richer. Pay people more is the answer, but how do we get there? Let me know what life on the minimum or living wage is like for you. 0345 6060 973. We'll carry on the conversation after the COVID report. Tonight, here's LBC's Lindsay Alder.
Labour says COVID travel rules still aren't clear enough, and the government needs to explain fully how decisions are made. From Sunday, 6 more European countries have been added to the green travel list, and the extra quarantine rules for France have been dropped. Transport Secretary Grant Shapps says the simplification will allow people to enjoy the summer, but Sir Keir Starmer's accused the government of creating chaos.
Anybody who's been trying to organise a holiday this summer has got their head in their hands, because almost on a daily basis we've had a changing system, changing colours, U-turns left, right and centre.
Well, Jane Bishop runs a hotel in Kent. She's told LBC she still thinks a lot of people want to stay in the UK this year.
So they're really thinking twice about going, and it is because of the fear of the travel restrictions and of travelling again. So we're benefiting from all this, really, with our staycationers.
Meanwhile, thousands of Brits in Mexico are having to cut their holidays short after the country was put on the red travel list from Sunday. That means you have to pay to stay in hotel quarantine when you come home. In Wales, the Welsh Government are considering whether to approve the lifting of most remaining COVID restrictions. The First Minister, Mark Drayford, has suggested nightclubs could open on Saturday, while social distancing would be scrapped. But one Minister, Rebecca Evans, has defended leaving the decision until the last minute, with some nightlife venues planning to open at midnight on Friday.
The First Minister's trailed for a while that we could be moving to alert level 0 on the 7th of August if the public health situation allows. At the moment, we're still continuing to have discussions as a cabinet, so we met first thing this morning again to talk through some of these issues, including nightclubs and so on. So there'll be lots of further discussions going on throughout the day before the FM makes his announcements tomorrow.
If Wales moves to alert level 0, face masks would still be required in shops and healthcare settings, but not in hospitality. There have been another 30,215 coronavirus cases reported across the UK in the last 24 hours. Daily figures show there were also 86 deaths. Both of those stats are similar to last week's figures. Meanwhile, the number of people being pinged by the NHS COVID app has fallen by more than 40% in England and Wales. Under 400,000 were contacted in the week to last Wednesday. There's also been a big drop in the number of check-ins to venues using the app. Now a look at how the virus is affecting other parts of the world. Australia's second largest city, Melbourne, is going into its 6th lockdown, with a state government leader blaming the nation's slow COVID vaccination rollout. It joins Sydney and Brisbane in locking down due to the spread of the Delta variant, and restrictions could be in place for 7 weeks. Victoria State Premier Daniel Andrews said they had no other choice because only 20% of Australian adults had been fully vaccinated. And Tokyo has reported a record 5,000 new daily COVID cases as as infections surge whilst the Japanese capital hosts the Olympics. Their Prime Minister has denied, though, that the Games have led to a rise in infections.
Lindsay Alder with the COVID report. We'll have COVID 1 year ago in just a moment, and we'll carry on the conversation about the minimum wage. Let me know where you are with it. 0345 6060 973. The news headlines now. Here's Thomas Watts.
Ministers in Wales have criticised the UK government's decision to change coronavirus travel rules. 7 men have been jailed for murdering a law student caught up in a drive-by shooting in Blackburn. The Bank of England has warned inflation will hit 4% this year. That's double the target rate. The weather cloudy with some showery rain across the UK tonight, a low of 14 Celsius.
LBC Travel, I'm Anne-Marie Walsh. It's very slow moving on the M25 anti-clockwise between Junction 4 for Orpington and 3 for the Swanley interchange following a breakdown. Long delays on the A13 eastbound from the Canning Town flyover towards Barking after an accident earlier. And in central London, the A4 Piccadilly underpass remains closed westbound. That's because of flooding at Hyde Park Corner. The A10 in Edmonton is queuing both ways. That's through the roadworks at Church Street. And on the train, severe delays on London Overground from Highbury and Islington towards West Croydon and Clapham Junction.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
On the News Hour, more countries move on to the green list. The pandemic pings drop by half. A record 482 people crossed the channel illegally, and ospreys returned from near extinction.
Ian Dale on LBC.
There's something big going on at Tesco. Big brands at small prices. Not just hundreds of Tesco products price matched with Aldi, but lots of big